What's up, guys? My name's Adam Gusky, and you're listening to the Mad Awareness Podcast. Today I'm joined by Ross Needham, the head assistant coach at UW-La Crosse. He also attended La Crosse during his collegiate career and was a two-time All-American and four-time academic All-American. Very well-rounded character, and also was my head assistant coach during my entire career and was a great coach, so had to have him on the podcast. But today we get into his career pretty in depth, but he talks a lot about what shaped him to be motivated throughout his entire career wrestling, which was a very long career, and talked a little bit about like parenting wrestlers and went on a couple different really good tangents that I think will be interesting for you guys to hear. Before we get into it, please make sure you're subscribed and have left a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. I would appreciate that a lot. And if you want a Mad Awareness t-shirt, they're out now. They look awesome. I just got mine last week. You can find those at tdpclothing.com. That's tdpclothing.com. And all proceeds go to me to buying a better camera. So there you go. With no further ado, let's get it rolling. What's up, guys? I'm here with the one and only Ross Needham. How are we doing today, Coach?
The one and only. That's a good thing, I think. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm very good. I don't know if there's any other Ross Needhams in the world, actually. So
I don't know. I don't Google myself very often. That's probably a good. I'm going to keep it that way.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So how have you? So you're a coach at UWL. You're one of my coaches. You've had the pleasure of knowing me for the last 5 years. I'm sure. Man, that's just awesome. But
Yeah, right on my resume.
good stuff. So you're a coach at UWL. You're the head assistant coach. It's one of those, right? Okay, cool. So how has like the coaching life changed since the whole quarantine started?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to when our national tournament got canceled, right? And just the craziness of how we almost didn't even get to travel to go there, and it took an act of Congress to get us to pretty close, actually, I think, to get us to actually travel down there. And we were just so excited to get to Iowa, which is, excited to get to Iowa, whatever. But it was part of, getting there for the national tournament, and we had a chance to compete, and everybody was excited for us just to get down there, and then to have the coaches meeting, and then we were just back from I think I just pulled a load of our laundry out of the laundry after the coaches meeting, and then we got the text saying, yeah, it's all getting shut down. So, going from that, and it's, we don't get as much contact in the spring, obviously, at D3 with our guys, but just being around them and, having to do stuff like this where we're meeting with guys over the computer screen, and it was just so good at our golf outing last week just to see a couple of them, from a socially distanced, safe, well, for most of you, a good pitching wedge away, to be able to see you and talk to you and that kind of stuff was just awesome.
Yeah. So like as a coach going through that, so I think the D3 national tournament got canceled like within 24 hours before the tournament was supposed to start. And like what do you even tell your wrestlers and those guys, my teammates, like what do you even say to them at that point as a coach?
Yeah, that was pretty much what we did, was just brought them in, and they had, because of social media, like they had found out pretty much just as fast as we did. So when we called them and said, hey, come down to our hotel room, I think the word was already starting to get out. And so really, we don't know what to say, and just a roller coaster of emotions that we went through those couple of days, just getting down there and then getting canceled, and all of the questions that came with it, but just trying to manage emotions, just being there for our guys. That's what it's all about as a coach. It's not about you. It's not about where we would have placed and what seeds we had. It's just how are we going to be moving forward, and just so many things, and not even knowing the larger impact of what we would still be in now, was crazy. And so just being there as much as you can for the guys and just asking them questions and deep questions of like, how are you actually feeling about this, and putting it all on the line like you did for some of you your whole career, with not having anything left. So it was pretty rough, but just like wrestlers always do, we get through it and we get our nose down and get back to work.
Good stuff. Yeah. Yeah, that was a tough day, but it's behind us. And I think, like, I talked to Grant on here, and he says, like, he was able to, like, take it and learn from it and get better moving forward, even though that's a tough, like, lesson to learn from. But on a better note, we had the UWL golf outing this week, and it was awesome. I'm just kind of curious, like, how much, like, what is it like putting an event with 144 golfers together during a quarantine type period?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy, going from our first last year to having 80 golfers, and not really knowing what to expect. And, part of that, obviously a fundraiser for our program and reaching out for support from people and not really knowing what kind of response we were going to get, right? Like, I mean, we're in a financial, for better words, a financial crisis, and things are not always that good. And so going out and asking people for whole sponsorships or to get a group of four to golf together and take a day off of work. We do it on a Friday. And so the golf course wouldn't give us a Saturday till we could tell them that we would consistently have a decent amount of golfers. So having 36 courses this year, I think I'm hoping to get us on a Saturday for next year. But, just some of the things that you would normally, even just handouts and things that you get for when people show up, how long was that going to take to order? Our university was on a purchasing freeze for a while, so not being able to order, UWL wrestling golf balls to give to people, just some of those types of things. But just the support that we got was crazy awesome. We got a lot of silent auction items donated. We couldn't do that in person, so everything had to go online. And so it was awesome though. We had a great time. We got everybody together, socially distanced, and got everybody out golfing. And as soon as the golf outing was done, we got to say thanks to everybody and excited to have them back next year and hopefully a much different time.
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely be back next year, but also I want to give you a shout out because you were on, like, I don't know, like hole 4 or something, and you helped out our team. You got it. I think you were one of the only people that actually hit the ball in the green. It was like 100-yard hole, so I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, thank goodness you were like my 20th group. It was beat the coach, but I helped you guys out because I could see you were just in a little bit of distress there. So, when you hit that same pitching wedge about 20 times in a row, either you're going to be really good at it or really bad, and I just happened to be really good for you. So I'd be able to help you out. It was more for the other two in your group than you and Mitch, but we'll leave that alone.
Michaela and Bryn, good stuff. um, so yeah, so that's what's been going on lately. But
Right.
we
Sure.
can we can get into it right away. Actually, one more thing, I just want to tell you, you look very nice today.
Thanks. I
No
appreciate
problem.
that. I put myself together for you, Adam.
I appreciate it. But anyways, so what was life like growing up as a young Ross Needham? Were you in Marshfield or Chile, Wisconsin? Where were you at?
Actually grew up in Marshfield until high school. Then we moved out into Chile. That's when I got real tough. But started wrestling. I know you asked like, hey, how did you get into wrestling? Because I listened to all your podcasts.
I appreciate that.
And yeah, yeah. But yeah, started wrestling. I mean, pretty much as soon as I could walk. My dad was a high school wrestling coach, and I was one of those kids that was getting taken to dual meets in a car seat carrier, right? And I just didn't know anything else. It was just, there was never a question of, was I not going to wrestle? I mean, it was just, a pair of shoes or wrestling shoes, and it's just what you do. And started at a very young age. I didn't compete a lot as a kid. Practice, I was up at a lot of the high school practices when my dad was coaching, so I was always around those guys. And as soon as I was big enough to wrestle with them, and it was, I'm sure, WIA approved, I got to wrestle with them. But no, when I was little, we only our youth program had a thing that, you remember those like snap jackets, that went up,
Yep.
and they were kind of shiny. Well, you got a little thing on the side for the year if you wrestled in 5 tournaments. That was like our participation patch. I'd wrestle
Okay.
5 tournaments. I got my little patch, and I was good to go. Like, I didn't do any of the youth regionals, anything like that. I did our local tournaments. I never wanted to wrestle unless my dad was there, and since he was a high school coach, I was limited to some Sundays and when they had a random off Saturday. So, yeah, it was great though. I loved it as a kid.
Good stuff. What, so like I saw your dad at the golf outing and I've like seen him a handful of times and he just has like he has pretty crazy cauliflower ear just like you. And he's very like he's a quieter guy but he's always like working. Like what kind of
Yep.
influence did he have on your wrestling growing up?
Just everything. I mean, he was. I couldn't beat him until I was a sophomore in college, and so like I never needed to go anywhere for practice partners. Like I was the he was just a little bit bigger than me, a heck of a lot stronger. He had that dad strength, and he was a working man. Like he worked for our street department. Like he was a laborer, right? Like a lot of coaches are teachers. He went and busted his rear end from 7 a.m. till 3 o'clock. He'd get done, he'd come, he would have to shower before practice because he was filthy from work, and then would coach us from 3:30 till 5:30. And then he was our head youth coach for a lot of those years as well. So he would then stick around and coach the youth practice after that. And, there would be times where he would have to get up and plow snow in the middle of the night, wake up, go plow snow from 3 a.m. until 3 p.m., then come to practice from 3 to 5 o'clock, coach youth wrestling till 7 o'clock, go home, sleep for 5 hours, get up and snowplow again in the morning. Right.
Oh
And,
man.
you know, but yeah, he was just always around. He never pushed me too hard. And he did a really good job of keeping, in my opinion, of keeping that coach and dad relationship separate. We didn't talk a lot about wrestling on the way home. And he was just a good influence. He was the one that was always telling me to go up weights and not go down weights. Like I said, I couldn't beat him until I was a sophomore in college. And so never had to go anywhere for practice partners. I didn't get to go to many camps as a little kid. I know a lot of little kids go to camps and overnights and all that. And we, my dad always said, hey, you can't do the stuff that I've taught you to do. And those are the basics. So why would I send you off to somewhere else until you can do the basics? Just stuff like that. That's old school, but I took to heart. Yeah, once I actually got to turn the tables on him a little bit, and you've seen him, like he's still pretty in shape. I'm sure he
Yeah.
doesn't know what podcasts are. He just casts for fish. He'll never listen to this. But once I actually got to the point where I could beat him, like it was that was a pretty that was an interesting summer. Yeah, because I'm 20 years old, full of piss and vinegar, and he's 45 years old, and he still thinks he could beat me, and he's 62 years old. He still thinks he could ride me. I guarantee it. But he's the best thing that ever happened in my wrestling career, 100%.
That's awesome. So the first time you beat him, like what was that night like? Did he talk to you at all?
No, no,
Like how
not for
many
one
weeks
second.
did that last? Or
Well, like at that point, so I would landscape all day, and I would work from 6:30 in the morning till about 5:30 at night, landscape. And I would go meet him at the high school. He was the head wrestling coach, so he had keys, so we'd go in and lift. And then a lot of times the high school had open mats or whatever, so he'd open it up for them, and then him and I would go on one end of the mat and would wrestle. And you know how it is, when you get that, like you start sparring a little bit, and the next thing you know, one guy gets a little cheap shot, and the next guy gets a cheap shot, and not wrestling live, right?
yeah.
And so, he was just so mentally tough. And then once he got to the point where and he knew my weaknesses, right? Like he'd been watching me wrestle since I was 4, and so like he knew my weaknesses, but he also did that as a coach, right? Like he was my dad, but he was also still coaching me even though I was in college. So if I struggled with shooting to a left leg, right, like he would lead his left leg for an hour and a half until I would get to shoot on it, right? And so he was coaching, but then also still trying to, I think, prove a point a little bit. But my mom always, when we got home, how the workout went, though, that's for sure. Whether or not we were talking, whether we sat on the same side of the table or opposite, because she always kept dinner warm for us. So she definitely knew.
Okay, good stuff. So, man, that's crazy. I've always like wondered these questions. I'm your athlete, I guess. So you always kind of wonder like
Yeah.
what kind of childhood forms a Ross Needham. Very tough guy, very good on top. You don't want to be on bottom. We have a lot of stories about that. That yeah,
Yeah.
Man, a lot of like, it's kind of like I don't want to make light of anything, but like it almost feels like I have like flashbacks or like PTSD from just like being in the wrestling room on bottom. But anyways, so growing up,
Talking about
so yeah, so growing up, like, were you like good right away, or how did your youth career and high school career end up?
I would take, out of those 5, 6 tournaments a year, I'd win. Say I wrestled 6 tournaments, I'd probably win those 4-man round robins. I'd probably win 4 of them and take second in a couple. I had really good practice partners in our youth club. It was just the Marshfield Youth Wrestling Club, right? Like I didn't go to any other club at the time. There was one up in Point, and this was before a lot of the clubs were out there, and we just wrestled your hometown kids, and we had enough kids that I didn't have to go anywhere. And even if I would have wanted to, I think my dad would have said, no, you need to make your teammates better. This is about building a program here. This isn't about building a club or an individual. This is about building for our high school team. And so I had a lot of really, really good teammates. And we would go to these little 4-man round robin. I remember meeting at the high school, and there would be like 4 or 5 kids would pile into the back of my parents' minivan, with like $3 in their hand for the entry fee for the tournament. If that, sometimes they didn't even bring it, and we'd pack extra sandwiches, and we'd get to the tournament, and have to sign the waiver. And my dad would be like, "What's your dad's first name again?" Because he's signing all the waivers, and just stuff like that. And then taking us to a pizza place on the way home or whatever. And so we do all those. And I was moderately successful, but I didn't do any of the regional. I didn't do hardly any freestyle or anything. It was just I played a lot of sports. Football, baseball, soccer. We fished a lot. I don't know. We camped a lot. So it was important for our family to spend a lot of time doing those other things. So I just didn't do a lot of that.
So like now a lot of kids like specialize in their sport and stuff, and even like in the youth levels. But like what do you obviously it worked for you to like do a bunch of different stuff, and I mean like what are your thoughts on that? Like just wrestling or like doing a bunch of sports and just becoming a better athlete? Like what's going to help you more in the long run?
Yeah. I mean, you say it worked for me, right? I was a moderately successful Division 3
Pretty
wrestler.
successful.
And so and won a state title in high school, but worked is what's your operational definition of work, right? Like what's the end game? If the end game is to be, a Big Ten wrestler, then at some point you're probably going to have to specialize at least down to 2 sports. At some point, I think in your high school career, I think specializing anywhere earlier than high school, I think is a mistake. I do. I just see an all-around athlete. I've seen it at all levels. The more athletic you are, you think about just the wear and tear on your body of wrestling year round, and then
Yeah.
also where's your ceiling at, right? Like you're 18 years old and you've only been wrestling. That's the only sport you've done until since you were 6. Like how much better are you really going to get?
Yeah.
And if I see that, like I think in recruiting, I think that's big. If we can see a kid that's been pretty successful but been a 3-sport athlete or a 2-sport athlete, it's like, whoa, once we focus on wrestling now in college, you're gonna really explode here. But I just and you never know. Like I think my 11-year-old, I think his sport, if you want to say that, is probably going to be wrestling. But who knows? He can kick it. He's at soccer practice right now. Like the dude can kick a soccer ball, and he loves baseball. He thinks he's going to the major leagues. But he's also a pretty good tackler in football. So why not just let him keep going, right? And he's building those friendships and all those other sports and getting to coach by different. Like I'm not coaching him right now. I coach him in baseball. I coach him in football. But now he gets to be coached by another coach. Like that's great. I love it. He wrestled this spring for the first time doing some freestyle and Greco because soccer was canceled. Got to be coached by a different coach. I watched 30 minutes out of probably had 35 practices. I think I watched 30 minutes, right? Tell me about it in the parking lot. Tell me about it on the ride home. Show me something in the living room. Great. Love it. I think there's more to be learned from that than there would be to specialization.
Cool. I'm like genuinely curious for like when I have kids, you know, you don't want to be the kind of person that like pushes your kid in wrestling too hard, but you don't want to do you don't want them to like do nothing. I don't know, but I think that's a lot of really good advice. So, um, yeah. So like, I don't want to get too into your high school career, but like, what are your favorite moments of it? I guess
Um, I
like
mean,
any.
I just yeah, I had some really good teammates, and we were one of the first to come through Marshfield that started like in our youth program, right? Like my dad and another guy kind of started that program when I was not even ready to wrestle yet, and started the youth program there, and really started, and we were that cohort group that started. So when we got to finish together, and I mean, my qualifying for state for the first time, as a sophomore was awesome. And that was back in the days, but really, like, I mean, we didn't even have dial up yet, and so that's internet, in case you didn't know that. We didn't even have that. So you had to like wait to like see from the paper and stuff, like what the bracket was going to look like and who you drew first round. Or I think my friend maybe had dial up yet, but we were not in our new, I don't know what it was, but I just knew as long as I didn't die, as long as I didn't get the returning state champ in the first match, I felt good about it. And of course I did. So, but then, Division One, if you lose first round, your guy has to win, right? Second round to keep going. So it's like, oh, great. If I lose, he'll win second round. And and then so I lost by a point, and then he had this guy that kind of ended up being all right. He lost to Ben Askren the next match, and so I was out of the tournament as a sophomore. But that really propelled me, I think, going into my junior year, and placed there as a junior, and then as a senior, I was able to win it. And that, I mean, that's my greatest highlight, is winning it as a senior and going undefeated, and had a guy in the finals who had taken second the previous 2 years. So this was his third time in the finals, and going into it probably knowing that there's maybe 10 people in the whole Kohl Center that think I'm going to win. And, being able to take him down at the end, and then, with like 8 seconds left, give the old optional start and run around like a crazy person for 8 seconds, just trying not to get taken down. And then being able to jump into my dad's arms. And then I ran up to the second story and gave my mom a big hug. And cause without those wrestling moms, you don't have the success you do without them. So, doing that, I mean, that was my greatest accomplishment, and then we qualified for team state. So we wrestled the following week as there and lost second round there, but to a really good Milton team.
Did you say that the guy you beat your senior year was a two-time state champ before
He was
that year?
he took second the 2 years before that. So when I beat him, he took second 3 years in a row. Yeah.
Wow,
And then he beat me
that's
twice in college. He wrestled for Parkside, one of the Becker brothers, and he was a stud. I mean, I don't know how many times I beat him out of 10 if I have to wrestle him, but I only beat him once, and that's all that mattered. That's all I cared about. He got
yeah.
revenge in college a couple times, right away at the Pointer Open, and then later on at Wheaton, he beat me both by a point in those. But like I said, you don't have to beat them all 10 out of 10. You just got to have one, and that Saturday night was my one. So I'll
So
take it.
that guy was D2, right? Parkside was
Yeah.
D2 still?
Yep. Yeah, he was at Parkside. Yep.
Wow, so
Yeah,
you beat him you beat him in the state finals, and then I mean you didn't really have to worry about like beating him for anything really important later. That is
yeah. I
awesome.
mean, other than the Pointer Open championship, but I still wanted to beat him. But
Yeah.
I know he probably wanted to beat me a lot more than I wanted to beat him at that Pointer Open. I'll tell you that. But
Wow. That's really cool. I did not know that. This is awesome. But was that the one that was like the national champ, multiple time national champ?
but his brother, his younger brother, ended up, at Parkside, and then I think he was with the Badger Wrestling Club there for a little bit. That's his younger brother. But yeah, this one had a really, really good career at Parkside as well.
That's cool. That's a cool story. So then like did you do freestyle and Greco at that point at all?
A little bit. I did some in high school. I think freestyle state maybe once. I trained a little bit just in our room, but it just wasn't a big push for us in our program. I was a pretty decent baseball player, and that started right away. We had a really good baseball team at our high school, and so we started baseball. I mean, it pretty much team state ended, and I think even before team state ended, we were throwing in open gyms and hitting in the cages and getting ready for baseball. And so I was just really dedicated to that, and wanted to be able to do that. And so I didn't do any freestyle or Greco. not that I don't have anything against it. I just knew I was going to be a 3-sport athlete, and for me, being dedicated to my current team that I was on was really important. And so, going to a practice at night and then wrestling on the weekends when we got double headers and all that kind of stuff, I just didn't feel like I was going to do justice to the current baseball team that I was on.
So you say you're like pretty good at baseball. I feel like that's probably like you being humble. You're probably really good. But we have played baseball multiple times. So at UWL, we warm up with the game sometimes, and we play baseball, and Needham's a pitcher. And you're pitching terrible balls. What's up with that?
Well, I mean, you would say terrible, probably just because I've struck you out a lot, right? Like, I mean, terrible for the hitter is probably really good as the pitcher, right? And so, yeah, I mean, it's just all part of it. You got to be ready to go when you step in the batter's box, and if you're not, you're gonna.
I can't wait. I can't wait to post that clip and just tag all the UWL wrestlers in that just to see if they agree with you or not. But anyways, um, that's funny. Got a lot of good times playing baseball. That is a great warm-up game, by the way.
Yep. Yeah.
But what was the transition like from high school to college? So, like, I assume you played baseball right after you won the state title, and then probably trained a lot of wrestling over the summer. And
Yeah. And actually, baseball is definitely my worst sport out of the three. I
okay,
love football. And I would argue probably both ways about being on a wrestling mat versus being under the lights on a Friday night, right? And I just don't think there's anything like that, truthfully. And so after my senior year, so we played baseball, we lost in like the second round of playoffs. I was training a lot of wrestling that summer, but also I was playing in the Shrine Bowl for football, the North-South All-Star game.
okay,
And so I was getting ready for that. So I was still doing drills, and there was a little bit of me that was thinking I was going to maybe play football at UWL and try both. And they'd recruited me to play safety there, and I was going to see how the summer went. And so I was training for the All-Star football game as well. And so still doing football drills and all that kind of stuff, but also wrestling, trying to mix all that in. And so trying to figure out what exactly I wanted to do. But I knew I was going to get one more chance to play football, so I was doing a lot of that stuff too.
So then, like, you get to UWL. Did you make the decision, like, before you got there that you weren't going to play football?
Yeah, it was like right after the All-Star game, and I had seen, like, I was the only guy there that wasn't going on to play, pretty much the only guy there not going to play college football. And I mean, a lot of these guys were Big Ten guys in small Division Ones and some Division Twos, and even some Division Threes playing there, obviously. And I mean, just the size of those guys, like the guys going to the Big Tens back in the days where we had like a weightlifting book, like I could barely carry their book in, and I was decent size. I was, 170 pounds or so and playing safety, but I just knew like I was a smart safety. I studied a lot of film. I read offenses pretty well. And so I just knew that was probably only going to get me so far. So did decide about midsummer then that I was just going to wrestle and put all my eggs in that basket.
Okay, cool. So, like, did you know? I guess we can rewind a little bit, but like, when did UWL like come into the picture at all?
UWL was actually always in the picture for me. Two brothers that wrestled at Marshfield, the Zawadzka brothers. Matt Zawadzka is now the head coach at Whitewater. They both went to La Crosse. And so when they would come home for Thanksgiving break, for Christmas break, they were always in our room, always wrestling, wearing those maroon/purple ESS sweats and
Oh God.
striped socks and coming in. And I just always, then they'd come home for the summer. I'd train with them in the summer. And I just, and so they were just always told me I was going to go to La Crosse. And I was like, yeah, okay. Like, I can't wait. Like, those sweats look awesome. And I can't wait to wrestle like you. And yeah, why not? And so it's a great teaching school. And so Coach Fader recruited me. Yeah, just a little bit, really. I mean, I probably remember maybe a handful of phone calls throughout my junior and senior year. We didn't have texting back then, or at least I didn't. And so, yeah, just a couple phone calls. There was some football looks at one point, and my head football coach asked if I wanted to play football in college. I was like, probably not. If I do, I'd do both. So he told anybody that called in that I was going to wrestle, and had a couple little D2 looks, but Yeah, I think it's because I didn't do a lot of the freestyle and Greco stuff that, yeah, there just wasn't much out there, and the recruiting game was just a lot different then. And I applied to one school. I took one school visit, and it's like, yeah, I got accepted. And I don't even know if coach knew I was coming to campus that day. I think I found him in his office and knocked on the door, and little Pipsqueak said, "Hey, I'm Ross Needham. I'm Matt and Ben Zawatska's high school buddy, and I want to come wrestle here." He's like, "Oh, sounds great." That's that's how my recruiting game happened.
Okay, La Crosse is like the greatest city in the world, but like
Yep.
what was the campus like back then? Was it like still like super awesome?
Yeah, I mean, everything gets better after you leave, like we're building a new, field house and indoor track right now. Right. So that's
Yeah.
after you left. Like, that's going to be awesome. So you'll have to come
Yeah.
back to see that. But, no, there's like a lot of new buildings and stuff. Coat Hall was still Coat Hall, still fourth floor, lived way up in the corner. You could see it right over the Cross Ave. I mean, it was the same. We're in the old sweaty wrestling room. So that's changed, obviously. Um, but just being able, for me, the big draw was I knew some people there. My two buddies in high school were going to play football there, so we lived in a triple that was sold as a double in Coat Hall, and they played football. I wrestled, so those are my roommates. Those are my roommates all the way through. But yeah, it's about the same, but some new buildings. Coat Hall was Coat Field is now where Eagle Hall is. So anybody that drives by there, and the fun that we had on Coat Field is no longer. But yeah, it's just as
Interesting.
good as it is now.
Yeah. So what were like the first encounters with like the team like in those first practices like?
Yeah, I remember the first. We had a meeting first day of school like we do now, and Coach Fader was like, "Hey, you need to, get the wrestling room and captain's practices and stuff, but get in the room and challenge the older guys." So I remember going downstairs in the ESS locker room, and my locker was right next to Troy Fabry's, and um, he was a junior at the time that year with the 149 pounder, and that's what I was going to wrestle. And I knew he was the guy at the weight, so I, did kind of the tap on the shoulder and, "Hey, do you want to wrestle tomorrow?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, he can." I don't know if you know Troy Faber. He's like, "Oh yeah, let's wrestle.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it tomorrow. See you at 3:30." And
That's a
so
good impression.
I'm like, "Yeah, you bet." He's like, "All right, Needham, let's go. You better not be late. Don't show up late." And I was like, "Yeah, you bet, Troy. Yeah, of course." And so I'm there early with my shoes tied, ready to go, and I think I just got my new set of ESS gear, so I was excited to wear that finally. And we show up, and he's like, let's just drill for 30 minutes. Let's just drill. Just drill for 30 minutes. I was like, "Yeah,
That's
okay,
so
that's great."
spot on. It's crazy. I
And
might have
so,
like 6 years ago, and that is so spot on. Anyways,
yeah, so we just he's like, "All right, you ready to go? I'll let you get the first shot. You ready? You get the first takedown. Might be the only one you get." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And so I think it literally was the only one I got. For 30 minutes, we drilled. And I just remember almost crawling out and being like, "I can't do this. Like, if that's drilling, I don't know what I'm going to do." And I went back to my dorm room and with kind of my, my tail between my legs. And I was incoming state champ, big schools, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm going to push this guy." And it was an alpha dog kind of a thing. And I remember going back to my dorm room and calling my dad, and he was just like, "How'd the workout go?" I was like, "Not good, man." "Well, who'd you wrestle, Fabian?" "Oh, he's pretty tough, right?" "Yeah, I don't think I can do this, Dad." And he's like, "What do you mean? Do what?" And I'm like, "I don't think I can wrestle. Like, if that's how it's going to be every day, I can't do that." And, I just got my syllabus for my first 4 classes, and they tell you it's going to be 100 hours of studying. And I'm like, "I don't know if I can do this." He's like, "Well, what are you doing tomorrow?" I'm like, "I don't know." And he's like, "We'll call him. Go in there tomorrow." And I was like, "Do what?" Like, come on, why would you do that? And he's like, "Go in there tomorrow. Tomorrow will be 28 minutes. And I was like, "Okay." So I did it, and because I was just what I did. My dad said to do something, I did it, and so I called him up. I had to use my calling card, and I called him and call
oh
him,
yeah,
and he's like, "Yeah." So he's like, "Yeah, let's do it tomorrow." He's like, "You sure?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "All right." So I went in, and probably was about 28 and a half minutes of whooping, and then just slowly started to be a little bit less. But yeah, it was. But I mean, team was great. There was some good veteran leadership. We had a really, really good group of freshmen coming in there that year that ended up accomplishing quite a bit, and ended up being leaders pretty early in our career. But
that's
first one was
really that's really good advice though, because like obviously I was there too, where I just got you don't score much. There's not much to look forward to, but like just like finding one little thing that you can keep track of and then get a little bit better at each time. Like that's like the only way to like get through those first couple months of college if you're just really getting it put on you. So, um, man, so like I guess you get into the season, like did you end up starting that first year at all after all the
No,
beatings?
no, no, no. I went to so I redshirted. That's when we could still redshirt in Division III. And so
Oh,
Coach
okay.
Fader told me pretty much right away that I was going to redshirt. And so I was going to redshirt. So I wrestled the Pointer Open, and I lost like second match or so, I think. I think third match I tore some more cartilage in my knee. I had torn cartilage in my knee at the Northern Badger my senior year. I had torn some. But I wasn't going to have surgery because I needed to finish my senior year wrestling. Then I was right into baseball, so I wasn't going to have surgery. And I got asked to play in the Shrine Bowl, so I wasn't going to have surgery. And I sure as hell wasn't going to go into my freshman year out of shape and not feeling like I was ready to go. So I didn't have surgery. I was going to make it as long as I could, and I made it to the first tournament and tore some more and decided to go in and have it scoped. So I only wrestled 2 tournaments as a freshman. I went 4-2 and 4-2, I think. Wrestled at some little, I don't know, some open second semester somewhere down in Iowa. We stayed at somebody's house and wrestled, and I don't even know. But it was one of those crazy, like Gable was in one corner and Billy Hubner was in my corner. Like, I don't know if you know Billy, but like literally Gable was in one corner and Billy Hubner was in the other, and I'm wrestling some Iowa red shirt. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that was my freshman year. I wrestled 149, and yeah, it was not anything to write home about.
So then, what was like your non redshirt freshman year, or whatever you call it, your next year that you
Ended
started?
up being Yeah, like I ended up being there's 3 of us at the weight, and a senior, a guy ahead of me, and so we all shared time. And we went out to the Bud White Hill duels out in Pennsylvania, sharing time out there. And one of the guys busted his elbow, and it's one of those deals where it's like, there's an opportunity there. Like, you feel bad for the guy, and we're in Pennsylvania, and you dislocated and like blew your whole elbow out. But but now it's like, okay, now it's down to 2 of us, right? And so so as myself and another senior were battling out for the spot, and we had to wrestle off before the conference tournament, which was at the time our qualifier. And he was a senior. His mom just passed away of cancer the summer before. One of those, like, wrestling inspired, and I ended up beating him out in the wrestle off in the room. And one of those, like, you feel really, really good about winning the spot, but yet you feel terrible for him. He ended up being able to go up to 165 and wrestled the conference tournament there, but beat the guy out there. But wrestled, I was in the conference championship for a chance to go to the national tournament. Put on the brakes with about 12 seconds left. Got taken down with about 6 seconds left, and didn't qualify for the national tournament as a freshman.
Dang. So you were winning the match, I assume, and got taken down with 6 seconds left.
Yeah, I was same. I wrestled them in the duel as well, and in the duel I beat him 2-0. I got an escape and a riding time point, and in the conference finals I got an escape, but in the third period it chose neutral, and I fought off a lot of really good shots, hit a couple of my own, and nobody scored. And then with about 12 seconds left, we went out of bounds. I looked over and I was like, okay, just don't get taken down. And he took me on about 6 seconds left and didn't get to go. So yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, still
So,
haunts me. Name's Tony Wright, Whitewater. I still wakes me up. So wherever you are, Tony, thanks for inspiring me. Thanks for sleepless nights. I appreciate that.
so yeah. So how did this match propel you like throughout the off season to just have that chip on your shoulder?
Yeah, well, I got taken along as a workout partner for Troy Fabry. He was a senior that year. So I got taken to nationals to work out with him because we just had a couple of upper weights that had qualified. And so I was his workout partner. So I got to go through all the motions except not getting to compete, right? And so getting him ready and just being a teammate and putting it all. And then yeah, then that off season really training and like getting just a little bit taste, being literally like 12 seconds away from going to the national tournament as a freshman. And yeah, worked pretty darn hard for that. Like seeing like, okay, I can do this. I can really do this. And so, yes, that really pushed me.
Nice. Yes. Like, do you have anything to say about just like being at the national tournament, like seeing it all before competing? That like, did it help you prepare, like visualize being there?
Oh, absolutely. Right. Like when you're in high school, you go to the Kohl Center right? Or wherever you are, whatever state you're in. You know, you go to the State Farm, you know, you go wherever you go and you visualize it, you see it on TV. But with, you know, the national tournament moving around in different places, you don't see it on TV. Like, you don't really get the taste for it. And going there and being in the back room, and then, you know, getting to sneak out and watch my teammate compete. And I had a couple other teammates, you know, Ryan Allen won a national championship that year, and getting to be in the back for all that. But it sucked, man. You're just warming up and getting ready to wrestle, and then you don't even get to go out there and put the leg bands on. Like, I'm not doing this again. I will never be a workout partner at this national tournament ever again.
Yeah. Man, yeah. Then the next year, you qualified for nationals, right?
Yep.
So I guess just like, what was that feeling like? I assume you won conference.
Yeah, I won conference and qualified, and, you know, went there and won my first match. It was at St. Olaf up
Okay.
in Minneapolis, Minnesota, so it was close. So a lot of my family got to go, and wasn't seated, of course, and won my first match. And then I had Marcus Levesser my second match. So four-time national, I ended up being a four-time national champ. I don't think he ever lost in college. Like,
Yeah.
and the year
It's
before
tough.
the year before he tech followed me at national duels. And so, but I had a great teammate, Ryan Allen, and he just said, Needham, you're going to shock the world. You're going to shock the world right here this match. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to shock the world. That sounds great. That sounds better than what I had going on in my head. So I ended up keeping the match pretty close, took him down to tie the match up with about 40 seconds left, if I recall. You know, I think it's probably the only takedown he gave up that year. Like, I don't know if the dude ever gave up points that he didn't want to, but ended up hitting an arm drag and took him down on the edge of the mat. And you know, if I ride him out, we go into overtime. There's only 40 seconds left, and I mean, it was like getting on a yellow jacket, right? It was like getting on a bowl. You know, like there's no way I was going to keep him down. And that was my best position. He got out, and I wasn't able to take him down, but and then left it all out there that match, right? And come back to wrestle in the blood round to, you know, American, going to, I don't know, the ultimate of ultimate tiebreakers, and ended up losing. So I'm not an All-American sophomore.
Man, but that, like, if nothing else, like that just shows you like where you should or could be. Like that's the craziest. That's just so close. It's hard to fathom.
Yeah, right? So, like, as a freshman, so close. Sophomore, so close, right? Like, story of my
Yeah.
life, so close. You know, up
Yeah.
until that point, you know. And so, yeah, once again, pushing me in the off season and getting ready to go for my junior year.
So I want to get into coaching a little bit just because you're a good coach, great coach. But your
Thanks.
junior year you take third, I believe, and then your senior year you take fourth.
Yep.
What are just like your favorite moments or memories from those 2 years?
Yeah. My junior year, I was the 8 seed, and I beat the number 1 seed. It was out in New Jersey, and it was in his home gym and or in his home field house, and he was the 1 seed, and I beat him in overtime to be an All-American. That's probably the most excited on a mat I'd ever been. And so that was pretty cool to be an All-American, to beat the 1 seed in his home gym. And
That's sweet.
then,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
that was awesome. And now he's the coach now for TCNJ. And so, yeah, I don't know if he wants to wrestle again because he beat me the second time. So if he wants to, he beat me then the next year at nationals.
Okay.
So we're 1-1. It'd have to be a catch weight. I'm a little bit closer to our actual weight we competed at, Joey. I don't know if he would listen to this anyways, but if he does, it would have to be a catch weight, so I have to bulk up a little bit. But yeah, just the teammates though. Like, we had teams that took second, you know, and third at the national tournament, and just being around a great group of guys that I came through with was just as important as all the individual stuff, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, one, we need to make that match happen. I would love to see it, and I'm sure all the people would. Two, you like really were around some of like the best teams that UWL has ever had. Like, how many All-Americans did you guys have like each year?
Uh, 5, 6. That one year, I
Yeah.
think we had 7 All-American. I think my senior year we had 7 All-Americans, and we still didn't win the national tournament. Right?
That's 7 out of 10. Like that is
It's crazy,
insane.
right? That's just crazy. And so darn school a little bit south and west of us in Orange was pretty good those couple years. But as well. But yeah, no, they just being around those guys, like you couldn't help, right? Like it talks about like, you know, you read all the stuff. It's like raising the tide raises all the ships, right? It's not just one ship going up, it's raising the tide. And what you were going to sit there against the wall when all your teammates were up there doing pull-ups and push-ups. And I mean, you know, there's so many dual meets where like, I didn't know if I was going to win or not. Like I thought I was going to, but I was afraid if I lost, I'd be the only one to lose, right? Like, I mean, at the time it was called weak sister. That's probably not politically correct anymore, but like nobody wanted to be the weak sister, right? And so I'm like, man, I better win because we're already at 157 and we haven't lost. And I sure as hell know these next 5 guys are not going to lose. So I better make sure this doesn't happen in the 5th match, right? And so it was like sometimes a guy would even have a close match and you're like, oh, good, I didn't have a close match without guys being like, why didn't you major that guy, you know? And so there was just a pretty high expectation of how we were going to train and how we were going to compete. And you put that, you know, at the time we had these old maroon singlets, like you put that thing on and you better be ready to go because there's 9 other guys in maroon, you know, like at the conference tournament when there's all 10 are standing on one side and then it's like a dual meet against the rest of the conference, right? Like if that doesn't get you going, I don't know what does.
Which of like your teammates helped you the most, just like become a better wrestler and a better person like throughout your career at UWL?
I mean, I had some really good guys like right around my weight that I got to train with. You know, like Jake Larson won national championship at 149. I got to train with him, and Tim Palmer and Scott Dorner were 65 pounders. They were a weight class above me, so if I knew I was rolling with those guys and they were ranked 2nd, 3rd in the country, and I was pushing them, then I was probably going to be all right at 57. But I mean, Jason Loloff was one of my best friends all the way through college. He's a 4-time All-American. You know, we didn't get to wrestle that much, although I do think there's a controversial takedown, whether or not I actually did take him down once, but you know, just having that, like he took 3rd twice and 4th twice, right? And so if you just follow along with those guys and just do what they're doing, you're bound to have something really good happen to you. And you know, I was a 4-time academic All-American. He was a 3-time academic All-American, you know, so it's not just on the mat, it was, you know, in life and in school, you know, so they were just great guys to be around, not just, you know, guys kicking ass on the mat. So
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, so I'm obviously from UWL, and you hear about these guys, and a lot of them are from your era. So it's crazy to think that a lot of them trained together. But,
right.
so what was like after college? What was your first gig as a coach? Where was that at?
Yeah, as I was student teaching, so like my senior year when I was competing for UWL, I was starting my student teaching. So I'd go student teach. I'd teach 4th grade all day long, and then go to wrestling practice, and then go home and, you know, correct, you know, Wisconsin history papers and get ready for the Native American unit or, you know, whatever. Like teaching 4th grade, and then but I got a 8th grade math teaching job right out of college, and just up here in Holman. So I was 15 minutes north of La Crosse. And at the time, the head wrestling coach there, Steve Egrich, was wanted to step down and be a part of the middle school program. And he was a teacher at the high school and at the middle school. And he helped me transition into being a head coach as a 23-year-old fresh out of college kid. And so that I ended up coaching there for 3 years right out of college.
So you go from like competing, being like a very high level athlete, and just probably
That's
being
pretty generous of you, but thanks.
well, okay, very high level athlete. I mean, it's true though, and you're around guys that all just love wrestling and just don't care if they like, you know, kind of get their ass beat and they'll come back the next day. How do you transition from like trying to teach kids that like might have not wrestled too much before?
Yeah, I think you know, had I not had my dad as a mentor and as a coach mentor, you know, just I was always watching him coach, and he has the I don't know if it's a gift or what it is, but he can coach the kid who doesn't even know what wrestling shoes are, who he literally gives the shoes off his feet to and says, here, wear these. I've got this set from 1982 over here that I'll wear mine. And can coach that kid just as much as he coaches the state champ, right? And so I think having that modeled to me for so long really helped me. But being a head coach of a high school program, you get to coach, but there's a way more to it than that, right? Like, you know, just jumping into it. I was a coach's kid my whole life. I knew exactly what to do, and I'd be just fine. And that's probably what I told them in the interview process. And Actually, I don't think there was anybody else who wanted the job, but they, it's like scheduling buses, ordering uniforms, uniform hand-in. Where are we going to stop on the way home? What tournaments are we going to get? Did I bring the weigh-in sheet? Did you do the skin? Did you schedule the skin fold check? Did you, all that kind of stuff. So as the head coach of a high school, you don't actually get to coach that much. So I had to put really good people around me as assistant coaches. And, I brought a veteran coach back who hadn't coached in a little while. And, I think the combined age of myself and the head coach at the time was 56. And this guy was 56, that we brought back, but we just needed that veteran coach who had been around and seen it all. And, he was around before, when they were still doing paper and pencil bouts, I need that guy on my staff to help me, with some of the nuances of the sport.
Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, I remember one time I was like last year or something, I was on the bike and you came next to me and I was asking you, I was like, so what is it? I'm kind of interested in maybe starting up a wrestling club someday. And you're like, just before you think about just the coaching wrestling aspects of it, like you realize like you're going to have to work your full-time job and then the entire evening you're going to have to run the practice. And you explain more of the details to me. I kind of give me a better perspective on my stance on that. But
I still think you can do it, Adam. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, right?
No,
I'm not going to.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not going to church it up.
Obviously a lot to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. But yeah, maybe someday, but first, got to get the bearings of regular life down. But yeah, so from Holman, how do you end up at UWL again to coach?
Yeah, Coach Malachek was the head coach my senior year, and so when I finished and got my teaching job, and I started working camps with them in the summer, and I brought my team to the first team camp that was held at UWL, and I brought some kids from Holman even before I was their coach. I said, hey, let's get a group together and let's go to team camp, and worked with them there and really got to know him there. And after he just kept saying, hey, why don't you come coach with me? And I was like, I can't leave this Holman program. I got a good thing going here. I love what I'm doing. And then Jason Loloff, who I had mentioned before, got a teaching at the high school, teaching PE, and Malachek was like, all right, there. Now, why don't you come coach with me? And so I coached with them on a volunteer basis for 2 years. And then the position that I started in was created. Josh Whitman, who was our AD at the time, got some things moving, trying to increase more sports with assistant coaches. And it finally trickled down to wrestling, and we got an assistant coach who was, at the time, I was an 80% equipment manager and 20% coach, and I left my dream job for that, man. If Malachek can't recruit you, then I don't know if you have a pulse. But it was 100%. It was actually at this table I'm sitting at right now. He came and talked with me and got me excited. And I didn't need much encouragement, but he definitely did it. And just a chance to coach with the high level athletes and help kids win a national title that I never got to, and also help them get a degree from one of the best schools in the Midwest. And I had an opportunity to do it, and I jumped on it. So that was one of the best of my life.
Well, I sure am glad you did. But what do you got to say about Coach Malachek?
I mean, he's like 1.1 miles away from here, so anything I say, he will know before this reaches whatever platform I put this on. But and I tell people this, that I wouldn't be an assistant coach under anybody else, and if there's at some point, I'm sure there was a chance for him to leave, and do some different things. But, I don't know. I don't know if I would have been able to stay and be an assistant coach under anybody else. A guy that models the way that he lives his life. Not only does he tell you, but he doesn't even have to tell you. If you just watched him do what he does, right? Like, he's an amazing husband. He's an amazing dad. He's an amazing Christian. And he's in all of that. And he's even a better wrestling coach, right? And so, I just couldn't wait for the opportunity to jump on board and help him. I think is something as an assistant coach, seeing where he needs help and how we can make the best experience for our kids. And that was something that I thought I'd be able to do, and not just win at a local level, but win at a national level. And I play sand. The one thing he's okay at, we play sand volleyball in the summer. We did lose out second round this year, the playoffs. So that's maybe an area that we both can improve on. But other than that, like, I mean, I see the guy all year long. We go to the same Bible study. We work 10 steps from each other. You know, we travel together. It's crazy. But
Yeah.
it was just his birthday. So shout out to Coach Malachek. He turned 50, which a lot of people didn't think he'd be able to do. And he made it. So congratulations to Coach Malachek. I'm sure he'll listen.
Congratulations to Coach. Yeah, I'm having him on soon. So
you are.
You
Oh,
know.
awesome.
Oh yeah.
That's a goal for you. Good job.
Had to have the two legendary coaches on at UWL.
Yeah.
Albie and Malachek.
Yeah.
But,
right.
Anyways, I guess, what are like your favorite moments of coaching at UWL?
Oh, I mean, you know, I love the everyday stuff. You know, I really do. I love guys coming in the room, and I love beating them in spike ball. You know, I mean, I love doing that. I love striking people out in baseball. I love those workouts too, where it's like just one guy and another, maybe like, you know, right before Christmas break, and there's just one guy that wants to stick around and hand fight for a while, and you know, just wants to hand fight and just wants to do it for like 30 straight minutes. If that's what they want to do. Knowing that. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot who that was, but I mean, those moments, right? But like, I mean, I got to sit in the corner for you know, 2 national championships. You know, so those are obviously great. Those 7 minutes don't even compare to what you know that they put in. You know, but having them jump in your arms and you know, those are great. But I love going to dual meets too and having guys win matches in dual meets, and having, I think, you know, on a weekly basis, having our guys beat guys they're not supposed to, right? And you get caught up in this number behind the D thing, right? And we're D3, and I love going to the Matman Invite and, you know, beating D1 guys, and going to the Don Parker Open and beating D1 and D2 guys. You know, like that number behind the D doesn't mean jack, and I just love that. Like, I just feed off of that, and I can't wait for that big hand slap after you beat those guys that you weren't supposed to, you know, or that guy that got recruited over you or whatever. Like, those are, but just those everyday moments too. And even guys coming in and sitting on my couch, right, and sitting there and, Coach, I don't know what I want to do for my career. I don't know what I want to change my major. I'm thinking about breaking up with her, right? Or like whatever those conversations, like those are just as good a moments as ones on the mat.
Yeah, good stuff. By the way, I just want to say this so I'm clear. I never said I want to break up with her to you. That must have been about someone else.
No, I wasn't talking about you. No, that was definitely somebody else. Yeah, geez, sorry, Michaela. And I put you guys in counseling. Yeah, we don't like that. You'll get a counseling bill sent to me. God, dang it.
I just wanted to make sure that was clear. No, we're good.
Yeah.
No,
okay.
But I have 2 more questions I want to ask you. So when you see your recruit, and you meet them for the first time, or like they come to UWL to talk to you in Malachek, are there any like common traits that you've seen with people that you just kind of like know are going to be successful?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, you know, obviously number one for us here is that they're take care of their academics. You know, they wouldn't even be on campus if they didn't. And so they're taking care of their academics. And just love to wrestle. But you know, I think every kid loves to wrestle. But do you love to wrestle, you know, and have those tough practices day after day after day? Do you love to wrestle to maybe go through a half a year or maybe 2 years of, you know, really, really hard wrestling? You know, do you love it that much? But I'm looking for just as much as, like, does he hold the door for his mom? Right? Like, and you get the folder from admissions. Who's carrying the folder when you leave admissions? Right? Like, I'm looking for stuff like that. Like, is this somebody that's going to be sufficient on their own when they come to campus? Right? And is there a lot of we talk from mom and dad? You know, like, we watch our diet and we go to this club and we nothing, because there's not going to be we anything once you get to UWL. Like, you have to do it on your own. Right? So, like, can the kid hack it on his own? And, you know, but how does he talk about his dad? How does he look at his dad? How does he shake our hand? I mean, we can't shake hands right now, but when we could, like, how do they shake our hand? Do they look us in the eye? Like, all those types of things, like, those are just as important as any national ranking or any state ranking or how they did. Like, there's going to be some really hard times, and I got to know that you're going to have the the background, and we're going to help you. I'm not going to turn you away if you don't do some of those things, right? Like, we're building better men every day, but if you do those things, your stock's going to go up a long ways, and I think you're going to have a lot better career if you have that background coming in behind you.
Agreed. And then on the flip side, what is your biggest pet peeve as a coach?
We're going to have to do this again, man. If we're
Top
going to go
three.
I just oh man. Shoot, you got me here. Usually I'm not at a loss for words, but I'm going through the Rolodex of pet peeves. I just think a lack of I want to see every kid reach their fullest potential, right? And there's a lot of things that go into your fullest potential, right? And not leaving it out there, right? Like, some guys will just hold on just a little bit, because if I put everything into it and it doesn't work out, then at least I can sleep at night thinking, okay, but I didn't quite put all into it, right? Like, there's a lot more to be said when you fully commit, you do everything right, but you just weren't good enough, and it just isn't good enough compared to whoever says what's good enough. But like, you just didn't quite get it. That's a really hard thing. Like, even like this year with nationals, like, there's guys that put everything on the line. They put their entire lives socially and maybe even academically and relationship wise, put everything on the line, and then they didn't even have to have a national tournament. So, but at least they knew that they did that, right? As compared to some guys that'd be like, hold back just a little bit, because then I can always say 40 years when I'm sitting in a tavern somewhere that I could have been pretty good, but I just really wanted to focus on my school, or I wanted to be well-rounded, so I just didn't give everything. But I really could have been. Like, could have been is, should have been is, yeah. I think that would be my first one, Adam.
That is a great answer. That was a great answer. But man, that's all I got for you. I appreciate you coming on. It's been fun just talking to you, as always.
Hey, what's one thing as people finish up how are you going to inspire them right now? Adam Gusky, I say, we're in an elevator. This is my turn. I get to ask questions. We're in an elevator. You get 2 minutes, not even. What's your main thing that's going to get somebody fired up for life?
Wait, what do you mean by that?
I get in an elevator with you. I push the 15th floor, and I look to you and I say, would you inspire me today? What would you tell me?
Oh, man. Let me think about this.
As you think, I'll give you mine. Ready?
Okay.
Okay, it comes down to 5 things really quick, and you can do it on your hand. Okay, it comes down to 5 things. Okay, first, take care of number 1. Take care of yourself. Okay, a lot of finger pointing. Take care of yourself, especially right now. Everything going on. Take care of number 1, because you can't help anybody else. So you take care of number 1. Number 2, once you've done that, this one, you're the sum of the 5 people in your group, right? You've heard that in other places, but you are the 4 people that you hang around. That's who you'll become. So you don't think you're a negative Nelly. You don't think you're you can say positive at work. Hang around 4 negative people at work. What are you going to become? Negative, right? Okay, so that's the second one. So that's your middle finger. This one's commitment. Once you do something, just be committed to it. Go in 2 feet. Go for it. Don't hold back, right? You're going to be committed. This one, take care of the little guy, right? So once you've done those other things, look for somebody else to help. Take care of the little guy. So help those in need. Help those who can't figure out how to run the printer at work. The freshman that comes in that doesn't know where the weight room is, right? Or can't get their locker combination if you're in high school, whatever it is, take care of the little guy. And then I think the most important one, the thumb that holds it all together, is having a positive attitude, right? Especially in today's day and time. If you don't have a positive attitude, what happens, right? It lets it go. If you can't see this as you're listening to the podcast, not the video, my thumb is holding over all the other fingers. So as soon as I lose my positive attitude, I stop taking care of number 1 and I start pointing the finger at everybody else. I put myself around bad people. I don't stay committed. And I stop helping others, right? And so the most important one, the one that holds it all together, is your thumb. Ding! You just got to your floor.
I'm going with that answer. That was a combination of all mine.
You can steal it. You can steal it. I don't think there's a copyright or patent. I don't know how to do that. But that's my one, Adam. So you get 2 minutes in an elevator. You can go with that. It's easy to remember. That's back before where there are a lot of concussions. That's why I use that. And so, yeah, there you go.
Well, that's great stuff, because you're very You know, you're one of the people that are always trying to get better, and like you do help people get better. You help me get better at just everything in life more than just wrestling. So I'm glad that you shared that.
There you go.
But
Hey,
yeah,
Bill, you got to tell one more story. I can tell one more
go
story. Mine
ahead.
wasn't. Mine wasn't in Egypt. No, that was it. That's the only one I wanted to get to.
Oh,
Like I wasn't trying to get like I wasn't gonna be put in some sort of camp in Egypt or anything, but I think it's still pretty good. Yeah.
oh, okay. I got you. Yeah. Well, good stuff. Is there anything else that you would like to tell the people before we sign off?
No, I think just that last thing I shared, man, is it's helped me. It's helped me so much, and it just you can just look down at your hand and you can just remember those things. And if you're doing those 5 things, you're no matter if there's if there's COVID, if there's not COVID, if things are going right in your relationships, if things aren't going right in your relationship, Adam, look down at those 5 things. And are you taking care of yourself? Are you putting good people around you? Because sometimes you might not be putting good people around you, so it's affecting your relationship with your significant other. Are you committed? Are you taking care of her? Maybe she's the little person, in your relationship. And then are you going at it with a positive attitude? And that can be work. Are you doing it with work? Are you doing it with your relationships, your training, whatever it is, right? So I just think that's the biggest thing. And you wake up every day, you look down at that hand, or at night when you put your 2 hands together, that's something that you do. I think that's a great opportunity to remind ourselves how grateful we are and to kind of recenter our focus.
Good stuff. I agree. And it's different. It's like a one different thing at different points of your life, that you have to raise the bar in. But yeah. Okay, is there anything else you gotta leave the people with?
That's it, man. That's all I got. I appreciate you having me on, Adam. And I love what you're doing with the podcast and the defensive pin. You're filling up my feeds and I'm scrolling through, seeing all the good stuff you're doing. So I really appreciate it. And bringing more awareness to the sport of wrestling is so important. We need guys like you and young guys like you doing it out there. And I really appreciate you're a good ambassador of our university and of our wrestling program. And we really appreciate what you're doing, Adam. Keep it up.
And that is it for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Shout out to Coach Needham for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it. Also, shout out to Albie McKinney. The man got married last weekend, and it was an awesome wedding. And I'm very happy for him. He's a great guy, and it was exciting to be there for him. Anyways, if you enjoyed the show, please leave it a rating and review if you haven't already, or leave it another review if you're a beast. Otherwise, check out the t-shirts at tdpclothing.com. That's tdpclothing.com. And have a great rest of your week. That's all I got for you. See ya!